I'm Stacy. Welcome to the kitchen of my old Kentucky home. Today on Bourbon and Biscuits, we're going to be making actually bourbon and biscuits. We're going to sweeten things up with Kentucky maple syrup. Let's get started. We're making maple bacon biscuits. Here's what we'll need. 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour, 1/2 cup of milk, 6 tablespoons of butter, 2 teaspoons of baking soda, 1 egg, 2 tablespoons maple syrup, 1/2 teaspoon cream of tartar, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, 1 tablespoon of white table sugar, and 3 pieces of cooked bacon chopped. First thing we're going to do is simply mix all our dry ingredients. The flour. I also did a version of these with gluten-free flour, just that 1-to-1, and it worked perfectly, in my opinion. This is the real stuff today, though. The salt and the sugar. Just gonna kind of mix all that together. Then we're gonna cut in. This is still cold out of the fridge. Don't want it to come to room temp. I've got a pastry blender. You don't have to use a pastry blender. You can use 2 back sides of a fork like my grandmothers would have used. This just makes it a little easier. Okay, so this took a second, but this is the consistency. You just kind of want it to beat it up like little kernels of corn, if you will. And now we're gonna add we're gonna add our wets. I'm gonna add 1 egg, and I like to give this a little mix before I put it in. Add the milk. And this is 2 tablespoons of the maple syrup. Like I said, this is from Kentucky, and this particular maple syrup has a little Kentucky bourbon in the mix. So getting a good aroma off of that as well. Last thing we're gonna do is add our bacon, but that is a finishing move that we're gonna do here after we get this mixed up. You just really wanna get the dry mixed into the wet. All right. I'm gonna get my hands a little dusted with flour before I bring out this dough. All right, I'm gonna take my biscuit dough out with my floured hands, and we're just going to make sure you get some flour on your rolling pin as well so that doesn't stick. I'm just gonna roll this out into a disc. We're looking to make, between 6 to 10 biscuits, really just depending on the size of your biscuit cutter and what you like. You might have to keep adding a little more flour as this rolls out. Okay, then I've got the chopped bacon. We're just gonna sprinkle that all over this. We're gonna kind of lay this over itself and roll it back out. So hopefully there's a little bit of bacon in every biscuit. Okay, I've got this rolled out, and I've got a biscuit cutter. This is just kind of a stand, well, I guess it's maybe on the smaller side. So it looks like I might get maybe 9-10 out of this. We'll just start here in the corner. And I've got a baking sheet prep with some parchment paper. We used a little butter to keep it down on the sheet. And we're just going to cut out our biscuits. We'll maybe use, if we have a little scraps, we'll just roll up the last one. We're gonna put these in a 450-degree oven and cook them for about 12 to 15 minutes till golden brown.
All right, since Stacy was using maple syrup in her biscuits today, I'm gonna use that for my cocktail too. And we're gonna be making a coffee-based bourbon cocktail. So we're gonna do 1.5 ounces of bullet bourbon. We're gonna put all this in a mixing glass with ice. We're gonna do 1/2 ounce of coffee liqueur. Gonna do 1/4 ounce of maple syrup. Kind of eyeball that one a little bit. And then we're going to do 1 ounce of our cold brew coffee. And lastly, we're just gonna do a couple, like 3 or 4 dashes of Black Walnut Bitters. And then I'm gonna stir this until everything is chilled and just a little bit diluted. Looks good. And then I'm gonna do some large ice cubes in my rocks glass here. This is gonna be a nice, great wake 'em up cocktail. All right, and here we have what I'm calling the My Morning Maple.
Jess, I thought I would explain how we came up with today's content. I saw in the local news where the state of Kentucky, the Ag Department, was promoting these local farms that were producing maple syrup. And I thought, well, that's kind of cool. Like, and they do it at a certain time of year. What is that all about? And apparently, Kentucky has a pretty significant maple syrup making history. And then you found out a little
why. Because I had no idea when you suggested we did some stuff with maple syrup. I had no idea about that. So did a little more research after you told me that. And I found out that in the US in the 30s, they started rationing sugar. So it became very expensive for people to have and harder to get. And so a lot of people in rural Kentucky areas started to tap their native maple trees for syrup to make maple syrup and maple sugar so that they could just produce it on their own. So it's very thrifty and economical and kind of just
very Kentucky way, right?
Yeah. And it kind of, I mean, it really went out of fashion until, as you were saying, people kind of started bringing it back.
And most people think Vermont maple syrup, right? And so the trees are different too, right? Sugar maples northeast and more the red maple here in Kentucky. Very interesting. Okay, now tell us how. This is very good, by the way.
Yeah. So the name of this one that I ended up with My Morning Maple could be a little bit of a deep cut, if you will. It's named for local band My Morning Jacket, who is beloved in Louisville.
International.
Absolutely. Yeah. And actually headlining one of our big festivals this year too. But
I love it.
Yeah. So that's and the coffee in the morning, kind of a coffee maple syrup drink. So My Morning Maple just fit, I thought. So here's to local music and local maple.
Cheers.
Cheers. We'll see you next time on Bourbon
and Biscuits. We finally made biscuits again.